Yo, what's up, my gamers?
Welcome back to the game. This is Book 1, Chapter 4. Let's get straight into the episode.
Last time on the Phantoms of Telva.
This particular book has been in your possession for almost 50 years now.
And you see Captain Jork is in there scolding the soldiers that started the fight.
What is wrong with you? This is no way for you to act. Not with our borders compromised the way they are.
Small, blue-scaled cultist robes. Yellow-eyed and, kinda small. Goes by the name of Chaff.
You have flashbacks of when you've seen this robe before.
That dude that stared at me, did he look familiar to me at all?
You too have come to die as well.
Real small sphere, and then it's being trailed like a comet, and the trail is like Roman numerals.
As the smoke rises and dissipates, he seems almost untouched by your magic, and there's just a grin that smears his face.
Why not tell us the name of the great wizard?
You can call me the Offender. As you're sure that you're about to die, you could swear that something is moving in the shadows. In one arm, she has a rather thick tome, and in her other hand, she has the God Killer. Last time, if you guys remember,
I don't.
I know that's why I'm telling you.
How many people actually do remember?
Last time, if you guys remember, which you don't, you found Chaff in the field. Chaff and Hannah stayed behind because Hannah had questions about where Chaff came from, having recognized his outfit. And then when you all got to the manor, you met the Offender, who nearly decimated you guys. Hannah had arrived at the manor just in time to send off a flare, alert the local authorities, who showed up, and so that's where we left off. Before we just move right into it, I'm going to roll a d4.
The chaos dice.
And each number is going to represent one of you or myself. Depending on which number it lands on is who we're going to start with. And we're going to go through each individual as you are all faced with some fabric of reality you were not prepared to. That is a 2, which is going to be Chaff.
Wow, right off the bat, huh?
Right off the bat, it's you. The 1 is me, the 2 was Chaff, the 3 was Hannah, and the 4 was Arthur.
Yes! I wanted to be 4. I just didn't say it out loud.
So, Chaff. You exited what you would come to learn was basically a prison, right?
Mhm.
You escaped into a field. You were hunted down by strangers whom you decided to tag along with, only to find that it led you to a massacre, right? Just death everywhere. And then immediately following that, you get the sense that you were pretty much arrested again for things you had nothing to do with. How is Chaff feeling as he's ushered into a cart right now?
Uncertainty, nervousness. Just a bit of both. Well, a lot of both.
And what's on Chaff's mind? What's he thinking about at this moment?
Right now, what's on his mind is this has to be better than back there.
So as you look at the situation around you, you begin to reminisce about life in the caves. You begin to remember going over in the Rolodex of your mind, if you will, memories of the past few months, years, your whole life, really. And it takes you back to a time when you were picked out of the crowd. Kobolds just massed together in a large room, and one of the elf guards came straight for you. Someone in the distance was pointing at you, and you were picked up. You were brought over, and they began to examine you, turning your head, your neck, lifting your arms, almost as if they were taking your measurements, inspecting you carefully. You were washed, scrubbed. It was very uncomfortable. You were told you needed to wear these garments, the very same garments that you're wearing now. Can you tell me a bit about what that was like? What you were feeling then?
I'd say it was it's a fond childhood memory, in a sense.
Interesting. Do you remember the name of the soldier that watched over you? Took care of you, really?
It was Baldric.
Okay. What kind of person was Baldric?
Tall. Well, according to my viewpoint. Or point of view. Wispy hair. Sharp eyes. His armor was quite shiny.
So, Baldric is tending to you. He's scrubbing you down, getting you ready for yet another ceremony. And he's just scraping away at some clay that has clung to your scales. No, Delta One, you should probably stop going back to dig with the others. That is not your place anymore. You've been separated from the rest. And he kind of looks at you, scanning your face, trying to get a feel for more or less if you understood or not what he's saying to you.
Nah, I think giving him a confused look, but accepting anyways.
He kind of chuckles, seeing that, and he kind of recognizes where you're at, and he pauses what he's doing, and he says, "You have been down your whole life, so you probably do not know what I am saying by this, but you are like wheat, separated from the chaff." Or is it chaff separated from wheat? I am not farmer. Anyways, you need a name. What do you think about chaff?
I nod my head in agreement.
I knew you would like that. Alright, let us get ready for ceremony. Here are your garments. You must not soil them. And remember, stand up straight. Do not look them in the eye, always look down. And hold arms out like so. And he kind of puts his arms out where they're bent at the elbows, so his elbows are tucked into his rib cage, and his hands are like outward in like an offering position. And all will be good. Understand?
I put both hands together and click my claws and nod.
He leads you to a chamber you've been to a few times at this point, and you see a few other kobolds dressed in similar garments, each of them holding what appears to be a refined version of crystals that you've all been mining in these caves. And there's a sort of stone table in the center of the room, and a tall elven man with fully silver hair is standing over the table, and he turns to look. In his hand is a dagger, ornate with intricate designs, clearly a ceremonial piece. And the other elves dressed in hooded robes begin to mutter and chant in a language you're not quite familiar with. A few guards bring in what can only be described as a body bag. It's full adult human length, cloth wrapped and tied. It seems lifeless save for the faint movement around where the chest would be. And it's brought over towards the stone table. And as the hooded men continue to chant, the crystals around the room in each of your hands begin to glow. You hear muttering coming from the man with the dagger. And that's where your memory ends. And you're brought back to this moment on the cart with different men hauling you away to probably interrogate you and find out what's going on. That is a 4. Arthur, you're unconscious right now. You have no idea who has shown up to carry you away. You have no idea what happened to the man with the flying swords. You're not even 100% sure that you're alive right now. And you find yourself slipping into a sort of dream state with faint voices calling out to you, calling your name. Suddenly you bring to mind where you were at. You almost seem to halt in this endless fall that you've been in, and you stop on the last thing you saw before you passed out, which was the drow woman carrying the book and the god killer. And it just takes you back to the day that you first opened the museum. You've just finished setting the dragon skull in its place, you've set a few other items down, and you're now closing the case where the god killer fragments rest. What's going through your mind right now?
Great sadness. Ashamed. Mostly grief. It feels real bad to look at this blade.
As you're having this sort of intimate moment within yourself, you begin to feel a tugging at your coattails. And as you turn to look, there, at your side, is little Carla Bree.
Excuse me, Mr. Wizard, are you giving tours?
Oh, well, not much to show yet. But if you would like, I'd show you what I have so far.
Would like that very much, Mr. Wizard. Mama says that magic is reserved for the king and the royals, but don't care. I know that you can do it, and I wanted to know more about it.
And instead of Mr. Wizard, how about just Arthur?
Okay, Arthur, I will call you that. It seems a lot nicer than Mr. Wizard. Also, wizard rhymes with lizard, and you are a bird.
Indeed.
Do you eat lizards? Do wizards eat lizards?
Well, some might, if they're weird. And also, there may be wizard lizards.
Wizard wizards?
Yes, So many things that magic can teach us if we just look.
And her eyes go wide. She runs over to the dragon skull.
What, you mean like this? This is a big lizard head, no?
Oh, yes, a big flying lizard.
And that's where your memory ends, as you're hauled off back to town. Hannah, this all seems very strange to you. You haven't encountered anything quite like this in the entire span of your life. But something nags at the back of your head. Something familiar about all this. Chaff's robes, even the swords, the mention of magic, blades flying everywhere. And then when you hear Armin mention the Kree Knights, immediately everything begins to come together. All the pieces begin to kind of fold in for you. And as you sit there in this cart on its way back into town, your mind goes back to one of those times where your father and your brother went away with the same priest as always. And you find yourself standing at a door that is barely cracked open, peeking through, trying to see what's going on, and then you feel all of a sudden a very gentle hand rest on your shoulder. Savannah, what are you doing here? And as you turn to look up at the familiar voice, you see your mother. Can you describe a bit of what she looks like?
She's slender and elegant. Her hair is up, but there are small pieces that frame her face. She's got the palest skin and the most beautiful hair. She is truly the most beautiful woman in the world. But her eyes, they can be a little scary, as they would be to any kid caught doing something they shouldn't. But it's a loving and firm gaze.
Come now, come inside. Come with me. Let us do something else, shall we?
But mother, why does brother always get to go with father? I don't understand. She stomps her foot.
No, Savannah. You know that, though you were both born at the same time, Leopold is different from you. He is set apart for a different purpose. And therefore, he must go with your father on for these lessons. But not you. That is not for you.
She kind of crosses her arms and she's like, I can do everything better than Leopold.
I am certain that you can, my dear. But trust me, you do not want to take part in what your brother is doing. It is taxing.
She looks confused, but goes with her mother as she leads her away.
She takes you to the sort of private library that you guys have in this wing of the house. And she picks out a book. A familiar book to you, a story that she often reads to you. How about we read this one?
And she jumps in excitement seeing the book, and she's like, oh, I love this one. And she sits excitedly on the couch near her mother.
Right, of course you do. I know you do. Now, if you recall, this is the story of how an angel
came down to the world and fell in love with a man.
She kind of excitedly cuddles closer to her mother, and the warmth of the fire and the sounds, it's just such a pleasant memory for her.
She goes on, not quite actually reading the book, but more of just paraphrasing what's in it, right? Like, if she's read it so many times, she knows the story by memory. She knows every line, every phrase, every witty quote, every lesson, every moral. And you find yourself back on this cart as you all enter town. Immediately, Hannah and Chaff, you're escorted to the town hall towards Klaus's office, while Arthur and Boars are taken to the clinic.
As Hannah's recalling this in the cart, she does let out a tear, but she wipes it quickly in hopes that nobody notices.
It seems nobody does, right? Everyone just assumes this is such a stressful situation. There's a lot of panic. People are really concerned. Most of the soldiers don't even understand what Armin was babbling about, but it seems Klaus does, and he is very distraught, like very visibly distraught, but has just enough wit about him to organize some sort of quick testimonial hearing and have a few guards go off to tell the mayor, the captain of the guard, and have some take Boris and Arthur to the clinic. And now you guys are just sitting in his office. He seems to leave for the moment and leaves both Hannah and Chaff in his office.
I'm going to cast Prestigiation while he's gone on the crest of his outfit so that it's different.
On Chaff's outfit?
Yeah.
Prestidigitation.
Yeah. Tongue twister. That's why I call it Merlin.
We just all start calling it Do the Merlin.
It's Merlin time. Just curiously looking about.
This room is filled with ledgers and books of different sorts, mostly a lot of legal documents and records. Things going on in town, who's passed through, who's gonna pass through, magistrate stuff, right? And Hannah casts this prestigious... She does the Merlin to you.
Prestidigitation, all right.
And that's more or less... Are you just passively looking, or are you gonna... Are you looking for anything specific?
No, nothing specific.
Okay.
Passive.
It seems a good while passes before anyone comes back. And Armin finally walks in through the door. Shortly after that, Captain Jork comes through, and the magistrate. As they're coming in, the magistrate seems to be in a panic, talking to Jork, when Jork suddenly lifts his hand in almost a non-verbal command for him to be quiet. And then he eyes you both over carefully. Okay. Now, somebody please explain to me what you saw, one at a time. Beginning with you, young lady, I have not seen you in town before. Today, you will begin.
So she kind of looks at everybody and she says, well, the mayor sent us out on a job. There was apparently a task to take care of some rats out in the fields. Originally, we had gone up to the mayor in hopes to help alleviate a burden she had. She seemed really stressed out. And so we went out there, and sure enough, there was something eating all the crops, and the goblins were freaking out. On the way there, we actually met with Boars, and he decided to take us with him since it was his farm anyways. So we all got there, and sure enough, we found this guy stealing all the corn, and
He eyes over Chaff, like with a sort of look of disdain.
And before we could really investigate it any further, we just started hearing screaming in the main manor. Arthur and Boar ran ahead, and me and this guy kind of stayed behind. We ended up coming not long after the others.
And that is all?
Yeah, by the time we got there, it was just completely a mess. I threw a flare into the air, and then when I ran in, it was just bodies and blood, and you could see visibly she's a bit shaken by the event. And then she's like, but there was for a brief moment some figures, almost like you see a figure on the side of your eye, but by the time I looked, they were gone.
Would you say vanished?
Yes, they definitely vanished if there was a person there. And if anyone would know, it'd actually be Arthur, who is obviously injured.
Jork sort of side eyes the magistrate and then looks at Armin with a sort of disappointment, and then finally lands on Chaff. And your kind is not native to Talva. How did you get here?
My character's gonna pipe up, and she's like, I think he's mute. I'm not 100%.
I did not ask you. He very, quickly and curtly interrupts you. You are a foreigner to these lands as well. But this one is suspicious to me. His kind comes from over the mountains. How do I not know that he is a spy for one of the neighboring provinces? Or do you not know that they sit at the very gates of New Flora? At this very moment. And he turns back to Chaff. Tell me, how did you get here? And he leans in real close.
Do I still have the map, or it does
Which map? The one you drew? I believe Hannah has it.
I think that's in my bag.
I took out my notebook and started drawing the cornfield with a giant corn symbol on it, and draw out the general area from what I can remember.
Go ahead and roll me a performance check.
Just to mention, before I forget, the symbol that I changed on his outfit, I did change it to a giant corn. I was already thinking that, but when he said it, I was like, wait, I just wanted to be clear that I was already thinking that.
That's funny. Okay.
Performance. Dirty 20.
Nice. This is like expert sketching you got here. Like, he looks at this and he almost immediately recognizes the area from your little sketch. There is abandoned shack out there, no? An old barn that used to belong to the Gerash family. This is underneath the barn?
I shrug my shoulders.
Interesting. And he sizes you up. Those robes. Were you some kind of clergy where you are from?
I look down at my robes and notice the symbol. I get confused. I look at the rest of my robes to check and see if anything else has changed.
As you're doing that, Jork stands up straight again. Tell me again, Armin. What is it that you saw? Please, Captain Jork, enough
Klaus. I am running this investigation now. I understand that this town is your charge. But I am in charge of the troops here. It was the Garage family, a war hero, may I remind you, whose home was attacked. I will run this investigation. Yes, Captain. Armin. Please, continue. And Armin kind of is like rubbing his arm, nervously it seems. And you see, the thing is, Captain, there's only one way I can describe it. It's like, and he looks up, it's like all them stories my pa told me. Back during the war, story of knights and magic and flying swords. And Jork's eyes kind of widen a bit. And you are certain that you saw this? I'm as sure as the nose on your face, Captain. I know I saw flying swords and around this guy. He sliced that lady clean in half. Right before our eyes, and he turned on us. He had a fierceness in his eyes. The kind you only see in someone who has lost their reverence for life. Listen. Armin. It is okay. Thank you for your contribution. Now wait, Captain, there's one more thing. Yes? We asked him his name, and all he told us was he was the offender. There is a visible shiver from Captain Jork, a man who otherwise seems very sturdy and sure of himself. He seems to quiver at the sound of that name.
My character pipes up and she's like, "Who's the offender?"
Jork kind of like eyes you quickly. A dead man. It is impossible. There is no way that you saw the offender. But Captain, that's what he called himself. And he said, the king sent him. Enough, Armin. Thank you. Please. Leave. And then the magistrate kind of pipes in. But the captain, if that is what he is saying, then maybe we do have to... We have enough worries, Klaus. Real concerns. War on our borders. Do you not understand? We do not have time to worry about some fairy tale that is long gone. Perhaps, maybe, just maybe, someone has learned to use the old magic. But I doubt very much that the king is alive and that the offender is here. Most likely. And he kind of like looks at all of you. It is Copycat, wishing to solidify his stance by attacking the very household that is responsible for the downfall of the Kree Knights, the House of Geresh.
My character feels a bit nauseous. With all this information, her face probably became pale, but she tries her best to keep her composure.
Listen, I understand that this is all a lot of information. And the magistrate here perhaps acted a bit in haste, rushing you to his office for a debriefing. And he looks at Chaff. You, my friend, I do not trust. We will keep you in holding until otherwise. Young lady, I know that you were with Arthur, and he is good judge of character. You may go freely, but I am keeping eye on you. Tomorrow, we will all meet again in the mayor's office. Is that understood? And he looks around again at everybody.
Yes.
Yes, Captain. Yes, sir. That is all. Make sure this little lizard is taken to the hold. And he walks out.
I kind of do like a side glance to the lizard guy, to Chaff, as I kind of get up to leave, and I go straight to find Arthur.
How long does prestidigitation last?
An hour.
It only lasts an hour, which this conversation did not take an hour.
Okay, I figured.
The magistrate does cuff you, and he kind of has this face of like, I'm sorry, I have to do this. And then he walks you towards another section of town hall where there is, in fact, a holding cell where he places you. As he's putting you in, he says,
You know, this would probably go better for you if you actually spoke. I am sorry, my little friend.
I just walk into the holding cell willingly.
Suit yourself. I will make sure you are brought something to eat later.
he locks up the cell and walks away.
I had stuff on me, like a backpack.
Yeah, he leaves you with all that stuff. He didn't remove any of that for you. We're going to move now to the clinic where, Arthur, you are now beginning to open your eyes. And first thing that greets you is the hazy image of Mayor Bree. And at first, as your vision is kind of going in and out, you see the younger little girl who was tugging at your coattails as it sort of fades in and out from little girl to full-grown adult woman in charge of a town in the west reaches of the Republic of Talva.
Which time is it?
Oh, good. You are awake. It is nearly 5 in the afternoon. How are you, Arthur? You seem to have been burned pretty bad.
Yeah, so it's this timeline. Yes, I was burned. And just invisible pain. But even worse, they ruined my coat.
You always say strange things. I wonder what time you wisp away to, but it is not this one. And yes, unfortunately your coat was ruined. But more importantly, you were a little more than singed. What happened in that manner?
Light disagreement?
Arthur, I have been to visit Boris. That was more than a light disagreement. Everyone is in the panic, talking about the Garashis are all dead, except for Boris, and something about a man with flying swords. Are such things possible?
Take a look for yourself. And I want to Merlin
piece of paper on the backside, just a full body sketch of the guy with his floating swords and how they looked. And on the other side, the drow girl with her hands holding my stuff.
I want you to roll a performance check.
How dare you! Every time you say roll a performance check, I'm gonna keep using the silver dice.
Go for it.
18 plus, give me a second. Performance. 20, not natural.
It's a great sketch. She looks at it and she's like, yes, that is a drawing, but that does not prove anything to me. But anyways, Arthur, listen. I'm sorry I sent you out there. I did not mean for you to get hurt. If I knew that it would be that serious, I would not have sent the wizard out.
Oh, trust me, it just feels worse than it actually looks. But time, as it does, keeps moving on. And besides my coat, I should heal.
So strange, Arthur. Always talking about time.
Of course, I am always talking about time. It's an excellent teacher. Example. A few moments ago, I was struck with a ball of fire in my back. And now, after some time, I learned that it hurts when that happens.
She kind of rolls her eyes. I am serious, Arthur. You could have died.
Well, I did see some realities that led to that outcome, but I doubt I would have diverged in that direction.
Realities. Why are you always talking about this? You know I do not understand this magic.
Oh, no one ever does. It's kind of a uniqueness of mine.
Alright. I suppose I should wait till you're feeling better. But could not help my curiosity. I just wanted to hear from you what happened.
Large fellow, flying swords, and a man who was insistent on different timelines where he spat up blood onto my coat, making it far worse than it already was. Has he made it here?
There was someone else?
Oars, I believe the fellow was called. It was his family home that was being...
She kind of puts her hand to her face. Listen, Arthur, if you're not going to take this seriously, then I will take my leave. Thank you.
Speak to Boris, then. He might know more than me. I simply know that I was robbed, and they have some powerful magic.
You were robbed? Nobody told me about this. We didn't see anybody at the museum.
I believe the picture I showed you, the one on the backside is a drow. And she seemingly stepped in between shadows themselves. And in the picture I depicted her holding what was robbed of me. A sword and an ancient tome of mine.
What was that sword again? And the tome? Remind me.
Tome I could never read. It looked important, so I kept it. And the sword is of no importance anymore. But that might be changing if they wanted it so bad.
Would you feel comfortable bringing this up in tomorrow's meeting?
Oh, so many different ways tomorrow can happen. I will see when the time comes.
Right. Well, thank you again, Arthur. And she stands up and goes to leave. Oh, Arthur, things might be changing from here on out. And I apologize if it doesn't all happen to your liking. And she leaves.
He just call out, and remember that sheet with the drawings. It's magical in nature. It won't last long. Oh, my back.
So now we are fast forwarding. You each are escorted by various means into the mayor's office. She is sitting poised and ready for the conversation that is about to happen. Captain Jork is standing to her left and the magistrate to her right. There are several guards in this room. Chaff, you are still shackled. And she clears her throat.
Now, let us begin this meeting. I know that we have asked each of you several questions, and you've all more or less given us the same story, but I am still a little confused. Where did this small lizard come from?
Captain Jork.
Apparently he came from the old barn that sits at the edge of the wood. There must be some kind of cavern beneath.
And he looks over at the magistrate. Sort of nods his head.
Yes, I sent out a contingent to go and check it out, along with the rest of the manor, and it appears that
My character raises her hand.
The mayor does nod at you and kind of does a motion with her hand, like, wait your turn, please.
and he says, I sent another to the mansion to take care of the dead, and it is confirmed that only the servants survived the attack, and there seems to be too much damage to tell if perhaps there was anything taken from the manor, just as there were things taken from the museum.
And he looks over at Arthur.
It seems, Arthur, that that book and the hilt of the sword you had on display is all that has gone missing. The other fragments of the sword still remain. Thank you, Klaus.
And then they all look at Hannah.
Hannah just kind of like, it's like, oh, it's my turn. And she's like, well, no offense to anybody here, but I don't think I should be part of this. And she kind of like motions like I should, like, towards the door, like,
I am sorry, but you were at the mansion,
Captain Jork says fairly sternly.
You.
And she says sternly back, okay, and so were the servants.
Yes, but they are the servant. They hold no magic, and they hold no ill will towards their masters. They are well taken care of.
Says I have ill will.
You are new to this town. I do not know you. Perhaps our mad wizard over here will trust you quickly, but I am not so quick.
And she's like, well, how should I trust you? Maybe we were sent by your mayor. Maybe this is all a setup to frame us. This is unjust, and I will not stand for this.
Enough, Captain. Listen, Anna, I understand your frustration, but please try to understand this from our perspective. This is a most grievous crime. The family that founded this town has been exterminated, essentially. And you and the lizard are newcomers to this town, and as I understand it, and she looks up at Jork, some of the soldiers that came in also betrayed us. No, was it not a soldier in uniform that attacked the house, and this other one that you, Arthur, say stepped through the shadows?
It seemed as if she stepped through the shadows. Maybe she was just blending in.
My character just kind of cuts him off and she's like, I didn't even see anybody do that. Like, I feel like I should not be here. I was just a newcomer into this town who saw an atrocious event unfold, and now I'm being forced to play a part in this? Like, I don't get your guys' logic.
It is very simple, young lady. We are being pressed from the outside. An army sits at the doors of New Flora. Our soldiers come in off the front line, and then a war hero from the previous war, his entire family is slaughtered. Magical artifacts go missing. For all I know, you are a spy. And I am sorry that you are caught in this web. And you, points at Chaff, you are clearly from beyond the Songbird Ridge. It has been ages since I've laid eyes on a kobold. And you say that you suddenly came up from beneath their old barn on the edge of their property. Yet again another connection to the Garage family. How do I know that this is not where you came from, young lady? How do I not know that he was coming to find you so that you can make your escape?
All I hear are baseless accusations. You're just trying to get me to do your work, prove my innocence, but really, you're just making me go around and do all the work you don't want to do yourself.
And what work is that? Because as far as I know, I have not asked you to do anything other than explain what happened.
Kind of crosses her arms and she's like, well, aren't we here to do something? Otherwise, why would I be here with all this information? I'd rather be in my room, maybe talking to a therapist somewhere, whatever that is.
You are here because you are witness to a crime. Even if you only witness a little bit of it, or the aftermath, you were on scene. We were not. And so you are being questioned.
Well, you have multiple witnesses that have told you that the perpetrators have escaped. So why are me and this thing, looking at Johnny, being blamed for anything?
Because you two are also new to town. And he, I assume you're a he, is wearing robes from an outlawed religion.
Are you sure he didn't just find it? I mean, he literally doesn't even talk. We don't even know if he's ever been around people. He could have been out in the wilderness this whole time. He was stealing the Ganache family's corn this whole time. We know that. Acting like a baseless animal.
You see? Nobody has given us this information. On that alone, this creature should be arrested for theft. Fortunately for him, and unfortunately for the rest of us, no one can press charges against him because they are all dead. But I am sure that once Bors awakes, he might say something.
Where is Bors?
Bors is at the clinic. In case you forgot, he was covered in gashes, which you bandaged.
So you're admitting that you know that I helped save the Garage family member and still suspect me?
Go ahead and roll persuasion.
Roll a d20, Google. Show me what you can do. It's 19.
He visibly deflates a bit. You are right. I have no further questions for you. But I would still like to know, little lizard, why you are wearing robes in the service of Necrochronomia.
I put my hands together the same way from that memory as a sort of gesture that I'm in prayer, you know?
Are you trying to tell me that you worship the goddess? Perhaps where you are from this is acceptable, but not here. Not in this country. And I am afraid with... And he sort of side-eyes the magistrate. The revelation that an offender has come I am left to believe that you have something to do with all this. Does that name sound familiar to you? The offender.
Nod yes.
And he looks at the mayor. Little kobold. She starts. I do not know even where to begin. You seem to be complying with us, which tells me perhaps you were unwittingly an accomplice in these crimes. But I cannot ignore the fact that you are wearing those robes and you admittedly know the offender. I mean... And she looks over at Arthur.
If I'm still standing, I just want to go.
You were put in a chair.
Just gonna go rob a chair. I'll be just seated very laid back. And with Merlin powers. If there's a table in front of me, yes.
This is like somebody's study, so you're sitting in a chair that has no table in front of you. The only person with any kind of table in front of them is the mayor, who's at their desk.
How could they? Did you know that toy where it has like a ball and a string and you have to get it back into the hole?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be doing that with Merlin powers. I will have made that a while back, and I just have been playing with that. Then I want to like make it, like actually get the ball into the hole with the toy, and then the toy spits out confetti from the top. And then I'm just in a corner. Yes. And then I just slowly look up, just like, oh.
Arthur, have you not been listening to any of this?
No, I'm listening. Yeah, as just as I've been to so many of these, it's more or less the same thing, isn't it?
What do you mean you've been to so many of these? This is the first time we are having this conversation.
Oh, you mean like this specific one? Yeah, I see what you mean. What were we talking about?
Arthur, you've been around a long time. What do you know about the kobolds and the worship of necrochromia and the offender and the Knights of Kree?
Do I roll history?
If you want to try to remember.
Okay.
Yes.
I won't use silver dice.
That's for the how dare you rolls.
This gold dice looks cool. 5.
For real?
History. 10 total.
You find yourself struggling to remember specific things, just vague mentions of things during the war. But that's about it. You don't remember specific names. You're not even sure if you've ever heard of the Knights of Kree. You do know that Kree is the royal family name. That much you do know. But everything else is kind of fuzzy to you.
Sorry to say that as of now, what you know is the same as what I know. Best I can tell you is the name is of royalty.
Yes, Arthur, we all know that the Kree are royalty and that they are all gone.
Yeah, in that war way back when. Did get some cool things from it, though.
50 years.
Jork says, like, very teeth gritted.
50 years, wizard. And I do not believe that your book is a cool thing if an imitator of the Kree Knights is interested in it. Especially if you found it in the capital.
What I find is earned. That book that I found, whatever they want with it, is my property to get back.
At this time, the mayor puts her hand up in a sort of like stop talking, Captain way, and she says, Listen, Captain, Arthur has been here a long time. Longer than any war. Longer than the town, it seems sometimes. I trust that he had no ill will with that book.
Besides, I couldn't even read the darned thing. It was all gibberish.
It was probably the family's secret language, and I assume looking at Chaff. Could you read what is on your garments?
Can I read what's on his garments?
Yes, Hannah can read what is on Chaff's robes, as it is the same writing that is in the book.
I'm reading it in my brain, not out loud.
It basically just has some mumbo jumbo about being a vassal onto the goddess. There's nothing particularly interesting about what's written on it. It just has like some tenets of being a worshiper of Necrochronomia.
Okay, I look down at the words and then back up and nod my head.
She sighs, and it's very plain to see that any answer that Chaff gives her seems to put her in more and more in a state of distress. Can you tell us what is beneath the old barn? Are there more of you? Your kind?
Nod yes.
Could you tell us how many more?
I shake my head.
You cannot or will not?
I just shrug my shoulders at that.
Is there any other form of communication you can use? Are you capable of writing in any language?
I hold up the shackles.
And she signals for one of the guards. Do you need a paper and pen?
I nod my head.
And she looks at the magistrate, who takes a blank piece of paper off of her desk and hands it to Chaff with a quill and some ink.
Take it and look up expectantly.
She adjusts herself. Let's try this again. Who are you?
I write down Chaff.
The magistrate looks down at the paper and he looks up at her. Are you writing this in common?
Yes.
It says Chaff. Chaff? He looks down at you.
Nod my head.
All right. How many of you are there?
I just write down 1,000.
It says 1,000. The magistrate's kind of trembling. The mayor's eyes go wide, and Short just has like a smirk on his face. 1,000. Is this an accurate number?
I add a plus to it.
The magistrate sort of shakes his head no at her. How could there be so many beneath our feet? Did not even know it.
Just smoke them out.
I was about to say something like that.
Short looks over at her sharply.
I look over sharply. Well, it's like, I agree with her. How else do you get rid of a nest of mice? You flood the tunnels and get them as they come out.
The captain says, "That is an excellent idea, Arthur. Perhaps you would volunteer to go smoke out these rodents."
I said flood the tunnels. I don't have any smoke or water magic. I have this! And then just like snap my fingers and just Merlin like a smoke.
I'm internally like, are you serious?
I have a question. Chaff, is there anything aside from kobolds in caves?
Alright, I'm gonna draw a human-like figure, rather crude.
There are men in caves with you. What kind of men? Do they wear robes like yours? He kind of seems to like eagerly be pressing a bunch of very clearly pointed questions at you.
I add the overly large elf ears to it.
So they are elves. Aside from the so-called defender, have you seen any other soldiers who can use magical swords?
I shake my head.
And have you seen anyone else who can step through shadow?
Shake my head again.
Not even any of your priests?
Shake my head again.
You see, Mayor, I told you. It could not be the real offender. How else would you explain that he does not have an army of shroud priests, and there are no other knights? No defender, no sword dancer, no magus, nothing. We have nothing to fear from a return of a so-called king. Little Chaff, the mayor corrects him. Chaff, how far did you burrow to get here? Did you come from over the mountains?
At this, I start drawing a rudimentary map from what I can remember long ago.
And it just looks like a series of tunnels, right? Like you've maybe only seen daylight a handful of times in your entire life before now.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not even sure what a mountain is, right? You've heard the word before, you understand the language, but there's no image in your brain. Nothing comes to mind specifically that says this is what this is.
I attempt a few sketches, scribble them out, and just spread my shoulders with a bit of a apologizing look on my face.
Okay. And what exactly did you scribble on the paper?
They were tunnels, but it wasn't exactly clear that they were tunnels. Like just a bunch of squiggles.
Captain, I believe that perhaps that is all that this kobold can answer.
The magistrate speaks up.
And the mayor, she kind of scans the room. She looks at Hannah, who is clearly upset about even being here. Looks at Arthur, who she's not sure if he lives in the same world as they do. He's clearly not as impacted by everything that's happened as they are. And then she looks at Chaff, concerned of what awaits them in their town.
Jeff,
I stand at attention.
How many times have you been to the surface to raid the fields?
I hold up one finger.
Yesterday?
I nod my head.
How large is the force that awaits below the ground? Not just the kobolds, but these elven men. Do they have an army?
Is it countable on, would I be able to count it?
You've seen enough faces to know that there's quite a bit of them. Clearly enough to keep all the kobolds in line. But to the best of your knowledge, you've never seen anything that would resemble an army? Because you've only basically known them as guards, right?
Yeah.
You've never seen a mass force of them huddled up anywhere.
So, at a guess, I would say... I'm gonna shrug my shoulders at that one.
Okay.
Hannah raises her hand.
The mayor's eyes dart to you.
You should ask him if they're friendly.
She sighs. The captain kind of shakes his head, and you see the magistrate sort of cringe with his whole body at that statement.
Listen, Hannah, you are not from this country, clearly. These people are not friendly.
Well, how do we know that? How do we know they're even involved with any of this situation? All we know that the kobold was on the land to get corn.
She points at Chaff, specifically gesturing to his robes.
You are perhaps too young to have even heard the stories of the Kree. The royal family was not kind. They were not good rulers, Hannah. And anyone who even dares to don the robes of the worship of necrochronomia does not mean well for anyone. I would even be willing to bet Chaff here and his people were being held against their will to serve the dead goddess.
Hannah kind of grits her teeth and she's like, what does this necro whatever have to do with the royal family?
They had close bonds with the goddess. You could say that by the power she gave them, they ruled this country with an iron fist.
I mean, clearly she did not follow through, considering where we're at right now. So, is it possible people worship this goddess and have nothing to do with anything nefarious, or is that just not possible at all?
Young lady, the man claiming to be the offender said that he was sent by the king. These are not merely copycats or people who randomly found a place of worship. They are clearly trying to revive the old kingdom.
She just looks frustrated again, and she's like, I still don't understand why I'm here still. Can I leave?
He looks at the guards, looks at the mayor, who nods at him. You may go. You are free. But Arthur and Chaff, you must stay.
Oh, what?
She looks at Arthur and she's like, I'll see you later at the museum then. And she just leaves.
I wave goodbye.
Arthur, I know that you do not wish to be here, and perhaps our troubles are too small for someone who's lived so long. But do you not feel anything for us, for this town, for what is happening? Did you not serve in the liberation war against the king?
I did serve. Just seems strange things are happening as they are. It's quite hard to explain. Time, stuff, and all that. But I do know that if I simply try my best, then things will get better.
And what is your best, Arthur?
Well, helping where I can. Keeping myself entertained with this simple toy I've made. I do care about this place.
He kind of slams his fist on the desk. Then help us to solve this mystery, Arthur. Please.
I'm just gonna stand up then and spread my wings out a little more. Just because I'm not taking this exact moment seriously doesn't mean I won't later on. I see this as foolish, not taking action, just simply speaking about it. We should have come up with a plan and immediately head off. Simply talking gives them more time.
So you are saying that we raid these caves?
I would say we go with a smarter plan. As my assistant said, smoke them out. We get soldiers gathered up, and we have little Chaff here direct us to all the entrances he knows. Soldiers at each entrance. Send in smoke, liquid, something to push them out. But that won't badly damage what's inside. And just make it like a stabbing motion, just like, deal with all the things that come out.
And would you turn the Hokovic River just to flood these caves?
We can make something that smells foul. We can make something that is harmful to breathe. Doesn't have to be just water.
And you could do such things.
Given enough time, yes, I could make something like this.
How much time?
I don't know, DM, how much time as an artificer would I need to craft mustard gas?
What is at your disposal right now? What do you have?
A lot of things. The benefit of having no money, I have a lot of things in my backpack. I do have an alchemy kit that I'm proficient with from Artificer. Papers, wax seal, parchment, alchemy set, proficiency with the alchemy set, noble clothes, money, and I just put no, you don't, lol, right next to it.
All right, so it would probably take you about 6 hours to make a single useful vial.
If you give me a couple of days, I could have something that could root them all out. Until then, we should have somebody watching all the exits. If anything sneaks out, take them out quickly.
He looks at Chaff. Is there more than the barn for an exit?
I shake my head. No.
Alright, Arthur, you and your apprentice, should she wish to stay, will make us these gases. I will send men to watch the barn, and you, little lizard, Chaff, whatever, will stay in the hold until this is over. Is that understood?
You should also, if I may point out, make ways of quick transportation of knowledge from the cave straight to either you or a large army of soldiers that are on standby. We don't know what that weird blade-wielding maniac may do.
Noted, Arthur. You do your job, and I will do mine. Thank you. Okay, so we cut away now. Back to Hannah, who's just now arriving back at the museum. The door is slightly ajar as you approach.
I'm going in and I'm inspecting. And I am proceeding with caution.
Go ahead and roll me perception.
Perception or investigation?
Are you looking for something specific?
Oh, nat 20, bro. Yeah, I wanted to be like investigating as she's going about. Look, like she's being very cautious. So whether you want that to be perception or investigation, it's up to you.
Okay. So on a nat 20, that was a very good roll. On a nat 20, you could tell that a few soldiers have been in and out of here since yesterday. The door must have been left slightly open by one of them. But you also pick up on a few other things, right? You note that some of the books have been removed from the shelves. The case where, to the best of your knowledge, nothing has actually been taken out of them. You note that a lot of the drawers he had have been opened. Some of the finer items have been jostled about. It looks like someone came to rob the place, right? But when you get to the glass case where the God Killer was being held, you immediately notice something very strange. The case hasn't been moved. It hasn't been opened. The lock on it hasn't been touched. And yet the hilt of this sword is missing. Somebody obviously took it out of its place.
Hey there. It's me, the Bard. I just want to take a moment to thank you again for listening to the show. This episode was short, but it was definitely a bit of a doozy. It was kind of hard for me to sit through it again and re-listen to some of the stuff, but we can always count on good old Arthur to be that comic relief. Also, if you like what we're doing here, if you enjoyed the show, then give us a like, rate us. Share us with friends, family, that random guy you passed on the street. But enough about that. We hope you join us again next time on another episode of The Silent Bard Tavern.